Welcome to Canada Conversations, part of Delaware Debates 2014, produced by Delaware Public Media in collaboration with the University of Delaware's Center for Political Communication. I'm Delaware Public Media News Director Tom Byrne. This conversation, taped on the campus of Delaware State University, focuses on the race for State Auditor, and we are joined by Democrat Brenda Mayrack. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Thanks so much.
Well, we'll start with the most basic of questions. Why did you decide to run for State Auditor?
Certainly. The State Auditor has a really important job to do. Delaware continues to be under revenue pressure as our state lawmakers are really challenged to balance the budget each year. And working families are in the same boat. They're working hard and trying to meet their budgets. The State Auditor's job is to protect and safeguard our valuable tax dollars. And as a small business owner and as an attorney with a law practice that focuses on auditing and audit defense, I think I have the right experience to make much needed changes in our State Auditor's office. We've had the same gentleman as State Auditor for the last 25 years, and he's had his chance, but I think Delaware taxpayers really need and deserve more, and I want to get the State Auditor's office working harder for them.
You mentioned a little bit about your experience. Elaborate a little bit more on your background and what there you feel makes you better suited than the other candidates for State Auditor.
Certainly. At its core, being State Auditor is about being a leader and being a manager and being an advocate for Delaware's taxpayers. As an attorney, I certainly have those advocacy skills. As a small business owner, running my own solo law practice, keeping those books. I've also been involved in the startup community and actually getting a startup company up and running for an app that would use technology to make the legislative process more efficient. I think I have those leadership and management skills to get the State Auditor's office the resources that it needs to do the job, and then to deploy those resources in the right direction, which ultimately is going to save the state money and help find money that will help our taxpayers, again, pay less in taxes or make sure that programs are fully funded.
Talk a little bit about some specific priorities and vision you have for the State Auditor's office, if you could.
Certainly. Well, I think the State Auditor's office is really in a state of disrepair, and I think that's unfortunate. When the current State Auditor took office in 1989, he had 57 people on his staff. That number has dwindled down to 14 right now. There are certainly efficiency cuts and doing more with less, and all state agencies have had to do more with less, but there's also a point where an important regulator who has a job to do to make sure that taxpayer dollars are being spent properly has been cut too far and isn't able to do the job. And in fact, there are 11 positions that are budgeted but that haven't been filled by the State Auditor. So as a first priority, getting the office staffed up, filling those vacant positions, getting the office the resources it needs to do the job is priority number one. The second priority then is to put together a comprehensive and objective audit plan so that audit targets are selected based on risk and on protecting those taxpayer dollars and not based on politics.
And dovetailing off that, because of the nature of the work, as you just mentioned, how can the office distance itself from politics and party ties, and how important is that?
It's very important, and I am a Democrat. That's a political philosophy. That's because I believe, in our party's belief that everyone should have the opportunity to realize their goals and dreams. But as State Auditor, I report to the taxpayers and to the voters. And I will do my job without regard to politics, which means if they are Democrats or Republicans, again, if it fits that audit plan and those objective criteria and an audit needs to be done, I will do that audit, I will do it constructively, and I will do it fairly.
How does the work of the Auditor's Office, does it need to be made more visible? Is it something that requires maybe putting it out there a little bit more for people to understand it?
Certainly. I think it could be made more accessible. I think a key function of the State Auditor's Office is to make information about how your tax dollars are being spent understandable to the average voter and citizen and taxpayer, because then the taxpayers and voters can exercise their power in the ballot box or by calling their state representatives or their school board officials about how those dollars are being spent. So I think certainly audits and that audit information should be made more accessible. And again, it should not be political. The information should be presented fairly, objectively, and without regard to politics.
What role do you see as appropriate for the State Auditor in influencing state policy in areas beyond the accountability with state finances? Or is there a role?
I'll be honest. I mean, as I said, I think the office is in a state of disrepair, and I have a big job to get in there and bring that office up to speed, which means filling those staff positions, putting an audit plan in place, and then executing that plan. So really, before I'd ever start to focus on other issues, I've got job number one right there. But I think the auditor's office could potentially play a role, particularly with smaller agencies or nonprofit groups that get state grants. They often struggle to put the proper procedures and controls in place to keep records, to make sure that their money's being spent properly. And I think that is an area, again, once the core function's been taken care of, that the state auditor's office could work with those agencies and small nonprofit groups to make sure that they have those resources, to make sure that they are basically spending state money and accounting for it properly, which can basically prevent other problems potentially popping up down the line.
And is there an issue or an area that you feel needs greater scrutiny or investigation at this point?
Well, at this point, I think it's inappropriate for me to speculate, but obviously, getting the office the resources it needs and then putting an audit plan in place that's based on objective criteria, risk factors, the amount of money that a particular agency has is of utmost importance. I think on the local level, the auditor's office is supposed to be looking annually at all of our public and charter schools, and that is an area that needs more attention, certainly.
Right. Brenda Mayrack, Democratic candidate for State Auditor. Thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Tom.
You can find all of our candidate conversations online at DelawarePublicMedia.org and DelawareDebates.org. Candidate conversations are taped here on the campus of Delaware State University, and they are part of Delaware Debates 2014, produced by Delaware Public Media and in collaboration with the University of Delaware's Center for Political Communications. I'm Delaware Public Media News Director Tom Byrne. Thanks so much for watching.